meeting, and we'll be passing the mic shortly. My name is Peter Irwin. I'm a city planner with the city of Peekskill, and it's nice to see familiar faces. I'm new to Peekskill, so those familiar numbers will be increasing as this project goes on. Just a quick reminder, so this is the public workshop for the DRI project to enhance Pugsley Park and Monument Park. Pugsley Park is on Main Street, just up the street across from the health center, and Monument Park is at the intersection of North Division Street and Highland Avenue. The city was awarded the DRI grant in 2019, and many of you are familiar. We embarked on a strategic planning process a few years ago, so this is really the continuation of that. I just want to say that following tonight, the city will make sure that all of the materials you see will be made public for anyone who couldn't be here tonight. You can go to the city's website, cityofpeekskill.com, and you'll see the DRI as the second news item. It will always be there, and you can navigate to the DRI website where these materials will live, and a public comment box will be available through the month of November. I am going to kick off the program, so I'm going to turn the mic over to Lala and Veronica from the Language Justice Collective, who are going to speak briefly about the process for interpretation into Spanish tonight, and then they will turn the mic over again to our consultants, led by Aspect 120 Landscape Architecture, who will take us through the presentation. Thanks.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Lala y junto acá con Verónica apoyaremos esta reunión con interpretación simultánea. So hello, my name is Lala, and together with Veronica, we will be supporting this meeting with simultaneous interpretation. Los organizadores de este evento se han comprometido a la justicia del lenguaje y esta reunión será interpretada de inglés a español y de español a inglés. So the organizers of this meeting are committed to language justice, and this meeting will be interpreted from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. Ya todos ustedes tienen el equipo de interpretación, so y'all already have the interpretation equipment. Para aclarar, las únicas personas que no necesitan equipo de interpretación son las personas que entienden inglés y español, los dos. So just to clarify, the people who do not need the interpretation equipment are people who fully understand both English and Spanish. Porque en espacios multilingües tenemos la oportunidad para que todos hablen. Because in multilingual spaces, we have the opportunity for everybody, both English speakers and Spanish speakers, to speak out. So, ¿alguien no tiene equipo de interpretación? Does anybody not have interpretation equipment? Okay, so if you don't have interpretation equipment, we're going to ask you to come over here to Verónica and get a headset on. Entonces, si no tienen equipo de interpretación, pueden venir aquí al frente donde Verónica y ella les va a dar el equipo. Un momento, bueno. Si tienen alguna dificultad accediendo a la función de interpretación, por favor alcen la mano y nos dejan saber. Pero, are you ready to start? Okay. Bueno, so now to turn on your interpretation equipment, you're going to turn up the little volume button. Y ahora, en el canal de inglés, díganme si entienden lo que yo estoy diciendo en el canal de inglés. So, los que están en el canal de inglés, díganme si me escuchan en el canal de inglés. Okay, el canal de inglés, channel for English will be channel B. So let's check that everyone, sorry about that. Okay, so todos me escuchan en el canal de inglés, todos deben de escuchar inglés en el canal de inglés. Oh, sí. So everyone should be hearing the voice that Veronica has in the English channel when I speak Spanish. ¿Funcionó? Okay, entonces, channel B for English, canal B y canal A para español. ¿Nada? Okay. Okay, and we're going to start. guiding you. Bueno, y Verónica ahora está interpretando, entonces todos me deben de escuchar. Bueno, crear espacios multilingües es un esfuerzo colectivo. Estas son algunas de las maneras en que nos pueden apoyar con este comprometido a justicia del lenguaje. Hay unas cositas que vamos a aprender a hacer todos juntos. Si de pronto la persona que está hablando muy rápido y no podemos entender lo que están diciendo, vamos a pedir que hablen más despacio. Entonces, para ustedes, más despacio, porque no los vamos a interrumpir. Después, si necesitamos que hablen más duro, vamos a hacer esta señal, más duro. Y si necesitamos que hable una persona al tiempo, porque los intérpretes no queremos escoger cuál voz interpretar, vamos a decir un micrófono. Bueno, cualquier problema con la interpretación, por favor nos dejan saber para que no sufran en silencio. Y gracias por su compromiso a la justicia del lenguaje.
Thank you, Lala. So I will just introduce our presenters tonight. In August of this year, the city hired Aspect 120 Landscape Architecture and Brook Farm Group, and we have Susan Janeshall and Kate Bakewell to present tonight's presentation. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to turn off the lights here. Is that okay with everybody, or do we need the lights on for any reason? Okay, that sounds good. Hi. I'm so happy to see everybody out here. We got a really nice showing tonight. My name is Susan Janeshall. I am a landscape architect and urban planner with Aspect 120 Landscape Architecture. And I am partnering with Brook Farms Landscape Architecture. Kate Bakewell is to my right, and we're going to be running this workshop tonight. So you all know why you're here. You're here to hear about what's going on with Pugsley Park and Monument Park. Well, they're getting designed is what's going on, and what we're here for is to hear from the community how you use the park, what you want to see in the park, and to hopefully get a little bit of an understanding about what you're expecting. And what we want to give to you is a little bit of an understanding of what we see in this first acquaintance with the park right now. So you see the two project sites. It's Pugsley Park and Monument Park. I think you guys are all familiar with the locations. Michael, you could go ahead. Oh, by the way, Michael is here. He's from my office, and he is running the slides. So let's go to the next slide. Just to give you a little bit of a sort of an understanding, Monument Park and Pugsley Park are really your only urban parks, right? These are the only green spaces in your downtown area. Yes, you have Lepore Park down here and you have Fort Hill Park, but you know those are not really in the center. So you have these two great green spaces that can support all the exciting things that are happening in Peekskill, and what we're here for is to activate these spaces, to design them for these future purposes. Go ahead, Michael. So I'm going to actually hand this over to Kate to talk a little bit about where we come in from where you guys have left off so far.
So we know we're already building on a lot of great work that's been done in the past few years, and that was all part of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and probably many of you were in those meetings as well. So we're very fortunate to have inherited a lot of great thinking, a lot of input from the community, and a lot of good direction on where we will take these parks. And I just want to quickly summarize some of those parts that, the elements in those parts that we're going to carry into our new designs, which you'll see later in our presentation. So more seating was definitely a request for both parks, and more areas for children to play, young children. There should be more, bike infrastructure. There should be areas where there can be special events, which you are already having there, but we need to provide more infrastructure, electricity, water perhaps, to help support those events. And also the spatial design should allow for a variety of events that happen throughout the year. And the vegetation is a little bit tired, and some of the trees are declining. So a lot more revitalization in the trees and the plantings is something that all of you have asked for. So, and also lighting, of course. So that's for Pugsley Park, and Monument Park is similar. But it's got some unique features. As you know, it has this spectacular statue at the southern tip, and one of the things that is definitely in the plans is to illuminate it, and also to add more lighting inside the park, so it feels safe to walk through at night, and it illuminates that beautiful park under that magnificent tree canopy. We also know that the community is interested in a place for a bus shelter, so we'll be showing locations for that, and also something like a programmable kiosk that will help people navigate the park, the area around, local businesses, the downtown parts of Peekskill. It could contain really anything, stories about Peekskill, but that would be another feature that is on our list that we're taking into consideration as we are thinking about these designs. I think that covers it, yeah. So just a few shots. We're the outsiders. All of you are way more familiar with these two green spaces than we are, but just to kind of collectively in this room just see a few things. We see, this is of course Monument Park. On the lower right, you see that long view down the lawn towards the south, towards the base of that beautiful statue, that Civil War monument. And then, next slide. And here, just a few images of Pugsley Park. Again, you're very familiar with these spaces. It has that, on the lower left, you see that strong central axis, which is a very defining feature of the park, and then those beautiful historic lampposts that call back to the original plan of the park when it was built in the 30s. So we are looking at everything, and we're trying to take that all in, and as we really conceive of these new designs.
Okay, go ahead to the next slide. So I'm going to run through some of the analysis. So this is things that we see as designers. When we come to a park, we read the space. And some of you see these things, some of you are aware of them, and some of them it's subconscious. So we're going to run through this, and just to give you a little bit of idea of what's going to happen next, after we get through our presentation, we're going to all break up into groups by tables, and we're going to have questions for you guys to discuss, and then we're going to come back together and discuss things together. So you have a major, big participation piece in this event. But I meant to say that earlier, I just missed it. So here we are. You guys know these parks at this point, Monument and Pugsley. And each one of these slides, each one of these next 4 slides, are going to show site analysis. So this first one is talking about the edges of the park. We see where there is views into the park, where there's views out of the park. You notice Pugsley has 2 entrances, and then we have fences all around and this hard edges at either one of the churches on either side of the park. While Monument Park has no real hard edges. You're able to sort of get in and out of it pretty easily, but it's a little bit confusing because you have the canopy, and then you have this edge at the bottom, and of course you can't even cross the street here, so that creates an edge without it being a solid edge. You can't, you have to go across traffic, so that creates the enclosure here. Go on to the next slide. Here we have a site analysis about the circulation. So we have the city circulation, right? The sidewalks, like you see in Pugsley Park. Here we have the sidewalks. And then we have a very simple, not really so hard to understand, the circulation of Pugsley Park. I think Monument Park is a little more difficult and a little bit more curious because you have all this great sidewalk circulation, but none of the paths that go into Pugsley Park actually connects to the crosswalks and the sidewalk circulation. So that's what we're seeing when we're doing these drawings. We see that there are these center points of sort of concentration, but they're not really pulling you in there. And that's something that we see as an opportunity to do something a little bit more with this space. Go ahead to the next one. So here you see the natural features in the site furnishing. The site furnishing, you all know we need more benches. There's literally 5 benches in all of Pugsley Park, which I was amazed when we like said 1, 2, 3, 4. How could that be? In this whole park, only 5 benches. There's so much opportunity to create spaces for people to be there, but if you have nowhere to sit, you're not going to go there. You're not going to stay there. Similarly, in Monument Park, there are some benches in the center area of the Monument Park. Those 2 benches on the side are part of the bus stop, I believe. So it's really a minimal amount of spaces where you're going to linger because the benches just aren't there. The seating elements aren't there. And there's such an opportunity for variety in seating elements as well. Go ahead. Oh, the other thing, wait, go back for a second. The other thing I just want to point out, these big blobs that you see here, this is the sun and shade, right? This is where we have sunshine that gets to the ground and the areas that we have shade. Shade's not bad. We like shade. There's a good portion of the year that we seek out shade, but then there's a good portion of the year that we seek out the sunshine as well. So this is great that we have both, and especially in Monument Park, this really great dense shade that really gives us some sort of sense of enclosure as well. Go ahead. So this is a little bit confusing, but I wanted to just point out a couple of things in these 2 diagrams. So this is views and visibilities. It's where are you looking at? I think one big thing that this shows you is that we don't know where we're looking at when we look at these parks, right? Because there's no real focal point. But what we do have, if you see these blue markings that we show, these are things that are potential viewpoints. We have the facade of the church, which is beautiful. We have the facade of the adjacent historic house. No, on the other side, Michael. That one there. And then I love this one that we don't even see. That you have up on the upper level of the church, there's a stained glass window that you hardly even see because it's just not framed. It's not, you don't notice it unless you're starting to look there. So these are things we want to highlight in our design. We want to bring the view. And then we're looking at views looking in, right? You could look in from Pugsley Park on either side from Howard Street or from Main Street. But it's really just this one point that you're looking in, and the rest is a little bit more obscured. And looking out as well, you want to have interesting things to look at when you're inside, or you want to frame that and make it more secluded. But these are things that we're analyzing and looking at. One thing I noticed in Monument Park is you do have this great we're looking at the monument, which is symbolized by the blue, and then we sort of have this sort of red marking there. There's really no in and out of the park there, which is fine, but then when you're standing at the monument looking back, you're looking back at the back of a monument, you know, another sculpture. So maybe there's a way of bringing it all together, you know, to connect these things, to make something, instead of looking at the back of the monument, look at something a little bit more different. I don't know where we're going to go with that, but it was just something that I noticed as we were going through. And another big thing, you noticed in that slide earlier, there are these great stone pillars in Monument Park. Actually, go back to that slide for a second. The pictures. This one. These pillars, these are like a really strong element in Monument Park, and it's setting up this view, this axis that feels like it should be really important. First of all, it doesn't connect to any sidewalks, but it also, basically we're looking at a one-story commercial space. The terminus of such a strong view, either we want to make more of it or less of it. You know, we don't want to be looking at a store at the end of this monumental view. So these are things that we're looking at as we're going through these drawings. So jump back to the end there, go to the next one. So this is sort of our comprehensive analysis, bringing all this stuff together. And this is really the slide that I think brings it home. So the first one, we see the needs analysis. We're looking at the existing shortcomings and this is both Monument Park. You know, we see that views are obstructed into the park because of the vegetation. There could be more thoughtful design of the vegetation. We have the primary and secondary entries don't correlate to the pedestrian sidewalks where we're crossing. So you see people crossing all over the place there. It's really a little bit unruly of where people are going to cross, and probably kind of dangerous. The center void is not activated. There's a limited amount of seats. The long view of the monument is obscured. And there's only really one single sunny spot, and that is really minimally used in that one sunny spot. So what does this say? What do we have? We have some good low railing that gives us some sort of a sense of enclosure there. We have dense shade from mature canopy trees. We do have seatings that allow you two different experiences that we could expand on. We have good views to the monument at the south, and good solar exposure there, but again, we're not capitalizing on that. Go on to the next slide. Similarly, we have this needs analysis in Pugsley Park, and I think this is, of course, a bigger park, a more used park, and a more central park. We have this great connection between the downtown and a residential neighborhood, and that's what we have that's really significant in this park. But what else do we have? We have good pedestrian connectivity. We have good views in and out, or potentially good views in and out. We have these city-owned properties. Some of you might not realize that Pugsley Park, while we think of it as this rectangle, there's actually 2 more city-owned properties here that are just not utilized. There's a potential to expand the park in the footprint. It's going to be not this first phase probably. I think this is something discussed with the city, but we want to recognize that in our conceptual plan so we could plan for the future. And we could connect to those spaces also with our pathways. So we see where there's sunshine. There's also this great slope that we could use in our design. The north part of Pugsley Park is a little bit higher in elevation. The south part is a little lower in elevation. So we could use that to make the design a little more interesting. Now the existing assets we see here, we do have this very directed flow. The fence acts as a barrier. Actually, these are sort of flipped around. Yeah, they are totally flipped around. This is sort of a negative, and that was a positive. How did that happen? So this is really the negative, if you think about it. So we have this, really less uses. We have the single non-varied channel for movement, and the amorphous space of that front area. You don't know what to do there. There's, you could sit on the lawn, but that's about all you could do in there, and I don't see that often. But it's a good event space, and we want to maintain some sort of a good event space in that area. Okay, carry on. Go to the next one. So here is where I'm going to hand it over to Kate to talk about the exciting part. What we see could happen, and we've created these 2 alternatives for each part that we're going to be asking you guys to comment on once we are able to explain it first.
Thank you, Susan. So this is Monument Park, of course, and we have 2 concepts, A and B, and we're going to need your help tonight to help us kind of figure out which elements of each, where we go, because they're kind of different. So let me take you through both of them, and I'll talk about the differences, and then there's also a lot of common things that they share. So looking at concept A to start with, at the top near Orchard Street, we have opened that wide open. And one of the reasons for doing that is we know from studies of public space that people like to hang out at the edges. And in the existing parks, you have fences. You don't have edges where you can just kind of maybe pop in for 5 minutes, have a coffee, and leave. You have to either commit or not. And so we want to have all the edges of these parks really be inviting and open and allow movement from different corners and just a lot more variety in how you enter the park, very welcoming. So you can see that monument at the top, it stays in place, but around that is now a plaza with seating, of course. And then there's a straight path, straight shot down to that giant monument at the bottom, and with more seating, because that's a beautiful sunny place, as Susan pointed out, but it's a tiny little, space that is very small, and you can't even really feel comfortable being close to the statue because there's traffic all around. So we're proposing making that a little bigger and more comfortable and allowing people to sit there and enjoy that space, look down at the city. Both these have that element in common. Another thing about seating, Susan talked about how there's not a lot of seating in either park, and we wanted, and that was a big request from the DRI, was to add seating. We agree, but we also want to add a variety of seating. So social seating where you can gather with people, isolated seating where you can be by yourself, places where you can, just take in the sun or take in the shade and be, watch the activities or not. So it really expand the variety of seating. So you'll see on these pathways, especially at the intersections, we put in a lot of seating. And also we have isolated seating, and we have, of course, at that top plaza, a lot of seating. So this maintains those original horizontal pathways of the current design, but then just adds a lot more. And with that central path, that center area, which Susan pointed out, is kind of not activated in either park, actually. We now activate it very strongly with this big path. And it's a major path, and then the other paths next to it are minor paths. So we have variety there too. Now moving to concept B, so this is a pretty big shift in the design, but I have to say I watched the Veterans Day celebration that just occurred on Friday, and I noticed you did that in a beautiful round kind of formation. And our Master of Ceremonies is sitting at the table there. And so this design looks like it might really accommodate that idea really well. So that was just really interesting to see how the park is used for certain kinds of activities and how these designs might support that. Again, opening more to the corners so we connect to the sidewalks, so you see at the top, and then you have this oval with some, again, seating, lots of seating, and it's a little bit more open. And then this lawn in the middle, which is maybe a bit more serene, a bit more shady, and a swooping path that brings you down to the left-hand side of that monument. So it's a very different feel. It's more country and more like 19th century park, and less formal than the one on the left, concept A. So if you want to just flip to the next one. So you will all get handouts, so you don't have to know all this, but we've tried to identify everything that's on the plans so you don't have to remember it, and the handouts are in English and Spanish, so everyone will have a chance to kind of scrutinize these more closely. I just want to point out we have called out locations for the bus shelters in the upper right, not too far from where the existing bus shelter is, and we see that, if it does happen, as being a sort of a unified piece where that can be where the informational kiosks might happen, and can be a real hub of gathering. And of course, both schemes, you can't see them so well on the slide, but you'll see in the handouts they all have lighting throughout the park, which would be a nice kind of comfortable pedestrian lighting. And I should point out that all lighting that we're proposing will have full cutoff shades so that we're not lighting the night sky. So we're protecting the stars, and we're protecting the birds and the moths and everything else that wants to have dark skies at night. So that's definitely, one of the rules we have internally for the lighting. Let's move to the next one. Oh, yes. So just a few images. Now we are just at the beginning of thinking about the lighting and the materials and the furnishings. So we don't have a full palette or full selection to show you and to get your input on, but we want to show you some of our thinking. And in this case, obviously lighting that monument, that spectacular monument, that it's such a strong, feature in the city of Peekskill. So we want to definitely celebrate that. And then within the park, maybe not blast it with light, but make it more of a serene kind of moonlit kind of feel, using the trees as supports for the light. So you don't even know that there's light, but you see that the ground plane is illuminated. And so that would be, you know, light levels that would be, you know, considered safe, you know, by the standards, but not glary kind of bright light. And it would really maintain that beautiful, serene quality and the dignified quality of that park. So, okay, let's go to Pugsley. Oh, no. Do you want to pop in on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pop in a little bit on this design because we put together this little analysis. It's sort of, you could see back to what I was saying earlier. We're looking at how it connects to the rest of the city, right? And I think it's really important that that we recognize we're giving a hierarchy of spaces, we're giving a hierarchy of options of where to walk, of where what's comfortable, and just different experiences. So like what Kate was saying with this swoop here, hopefully the city would put in another crosswalk, maybe shorten the distance there, but this is a more of a future aspect here, because right now we don't have any crosswalks here. Here's maintaining the current crosswalks, but expanding the ability to circulate throughout the park in Monument Park. Now I'm going to give it to Kate.
Okay, and you can see that there's a lot of common pieces here, big plaza, lawn area, et cetera. One more thing to mention is it's not, the green ground plane there'll be some paving, some lawn, but then a lot of plantings. So we're trying to, wherever we can, put in native plantings, plant communities that are low maintenance and very much part of the region, and so they would be rich with pollinators and be something that would be that would grow and thrive without having to be clipped and irrigated and so forth. So wherever we can kind of introduce more of that, that'll give the park more interest and more vitality in terms of little butterflies and bees and birds. So we're not just thinking of the green surfaces as being only lawn. I want to make sure that's emphasized. Okay, now we go to Pugsley, yeah? Okay. So again, we have two choices here, and it's not either or. It's not like, which one do you want? It's more, we want to tease out from you, what are you falling in love with? What do you think is really successful? What do you think really isn't going to be the direction we should go in? As much as you can help us with that, it would be really, really, you know, a good helpful step, because we're kind of in love with both of these. I mean, I guess some people have, you know, maybe you're leaning towards one, but what we've heard so far is there's parts of some of one and parts of the other, and okay, we can mash them together, but we don't want to just do that with our own heads. We want to mine all the ideas in this room. So starting with on the left, option A, you can see we've maintained that straight shot. So, you know, it's called, Pugsley is considered a cut-through park right now, and so you still get that with this, but we add a lot more variety in pathways, and it's little, you know, smaller pathways that curve and move through the space. So if you don't want the straight shot, you want to kind of linger and slow down, you can do that, and of course, seating throughout. Now this pathway, Michael, if you could trace from the Howard up at the right, and trace that path that goes all the way down to Main Street, no, to the left, it goes through the plaza. That is a whole potentially connected habitat. And as we all know, habitat wants to be connected, not fragmented, so this is a little nod to that idea. In addition, we know that there is this interest in having art, and we'll talk about the lighting art separately, but for this particular pathway, we know that there was an interest in having some mural art along that edge, and so we thought maybe this whole pathway could be a habitat walk, it could be an art walk, it could maybe be a place where art changes, it doesn't have to be a fixed static thing, so we don't know yet, but just wanted to sort of show that and you know, just make that kind of clear, because the rendering is a little fuzzy, I think. And because we have this slope, this kind of high ground at Howard that goes down to a lower point at Main Street, we have this opportunity to use that as maybe a kind of like an informal amphitheater. So those arcing steps are just little terraces that could be, you know, steps for maybe movie night where you could put a screen at the bottom, and then have an open lawn, or it can just be used casually on a day-to-day basis. Again, both edges at Howard and Main Street are opened up. Not just, as you recall, Pugsley right now, it's one entry at each street, that's it. We want to say, no, come on in. And if you don't even want to go in, where you were just now, Michael, is great. If you don't want to really go into the park just now, you could just hang out and sit on a little low wall right at the edge. And you're still kind of in the park, but not really committing. And then if you want to go deeper into the park, you can go up through the little amphitheater and then to this plaza area, which of course there's more seating. That could be a very safe play space to watch your children if you want to just kind of bring them there for a little play. It also could be a nice event space for the people, the church people are here, St. Peter's people are here. And so we saw that as a way to kind of engage the fact that they're the neighbor to this park. And then we're also showing at the upper right, optimistically, taking over that spot for more park area, and then maybe even moving the right-of-way over. So we have this continuous kind of parkland. Now that is not for just now, but we want to propose it and get people excited about maybe trying to get that going, if you like it. Moving to B, now you can see B also has that kind of nice swirling movement that option B in Monument Park had. So it's got that, again, that 19th century sort of like, you know, Central Park feel. There's no straight lines. It's very soft and there's a lot of movement. But it acknowledges that central pathway. It didn't erase it altogether because that middle circle is where the current middle circle is, where there used to be a fountain. So it's a little bit of a memory to that. And then as you move away from that circle towards the left, there's this idea of putting in a little maybe stage, and then behind that stage a trellis that could hold, again, the artwork or be used for any kind of, you know, other events, but it also helps screen out that parking lot just a little bit. And then again, swooping down to Main Street, where again you have lots and lots of opening to the street. It's not just this single, you know, opening through a fence. It's now, come on in. We've opened up and we want to really engage the public. And then we've also co-opted at the upper right that piece of park there too. And then just below the house, there's a little nod to, that's also a public property. So maybe we're not trying to, we would love to take it over as a park, but it's a parking lot now. Let's not be too greedy, but maybe just have an opening there and allow some access into the park that way. So this one also accommodates those, both these have that open lawn that accommodate events and movie nights, other celebrations. But they do it in slightly different ways. And one more thing I just want to make, so again, there's lighting throughout both of these and reusing the existing lights that are beautiful, and we wouldn't want to toss those because they really say Pugsley Park. But we would want to refurbish them, give them cut-off shades so they're not lighting the sky, and then maybe use them maybe along that art walk or dot them in somewhere else. And we would also like to see more shade, like it already has shade at the north and open at the south, so intensify the shade at the north because it's only going to get hotter. You know, these summers are only going to get hotter. And so, but we still want to have nice healthy lawn for for children to play and just all the events that you might want to stage there. So I think I've covered all those, yeah, and then, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think Kate got a lot of this, and I you know, when I'm looking at these two designs, as Kate said, there are some great things in both of them. You know, the use of the elevation and the use of the pollinator path is really, you know, striking and really brings home what could happen here. I think one thing from the B that is recognizing where we are. There's a parking lot right next door here, right? And if you ever walk down the street, you notice there's two little areas of paving that was saved from the parking lot to keep this open space, but it's not really used for anything. Why not make that a grand entrance to the park, right? It's a paved area already, redesign it, really expand the park to become part of the public realm in the, right? So basically there's a network of public spaces within the city. It doesn't have to be one space and the other, but you're really connecting by reaching out beyond our borders a little bit. So that's what you see down there. Another thing that I think is interesting about the circulation in this, and you'll see it on the circulation slide in a second, right now, if you come to the opening of the park and you look up, you have to say, okay, am I gonna go into the park or not? Probably not, I'll keep walking. Here, you can walk in, maybe sit down here and walk right back out again. So the same thing as in here, where we're widening the sidewalk, that brings you a little bit more into the park and gives you another little gathering space, a smaller gathering space right by the entrance of the park. So there's so many ideas that are going on here, so many different pathways and activities that can happen. So what we want to see is what rings in your head when you're looking at these. Michael, can you go to the next slide? So this you're going to get, again, this is just the call outs of all these different areas to make it more clear. You could take these home, study them. You're going to have access to the slideshow as well, I believe. Go to the next one. Actually, the next one again. We'll come back to this in a second. But I just want to show you that hierarchy of pathways where we're going to use different materials, right? Some of it's going to be a hard concrete surface. Maybe if we have enough money, we could use some nice pavers. But maybe we'll use like a fine stabilized granite dust. Yeah, Michael, go to the next slide. No, the one after. So yeah, so here we're just getting some ideas about how we can use that ground plane to start bringing in interest. Because we're recognizing that this first phase of the design, we have a lot of great ideas, and we could, if we had a limitless budget, we could go so many places. But we do have a limited budget, so we want to get this first phase really activated and use the materials to make it interesting, both in creating the spaces as well as the textures on the ground. So this is just a slide to say, there are so many, we could reuse pavers that exist, we could create interest with concrete, we could create interest with painted surfaces, and maybe a temporary painted surface. Maybe we could have a fountain in the future, but currently we don't have the money to put in a fountain. So we could put in some painted surfaces to make it more playful and interesting for the next 10 years or for the next 8 years. Go back to the seating and use elements as much as possible for multi-purpose. Right, for play, for seating, for sculpture, and making the most out of the budget that we do have right now. So this is where we're at in just exploring what we can do. Yes.
Michael, could you go back to the Pugsley Park? That's fine. One of the partners for Pugsley Park is the Enlightened Peekskill project. And we don't know what that is going to be just yet. We've seen some really beautiful designs, and so we're excited to work with them and help massage the design into what that will be. Right now, if it's just an object, both these schemes can easily accommodate that object in the lawn or in those central plazas or something, but just wanted to mention that that's going to be a dialogue. And they'll inform us about what they want to do, and then we'll look at how the design really should support that. So, but right now, we don't know. So just wanted to bring that up, yeah.
So I don't think we don't have the questions up on the screen, right? Okay, so why don't we give out the questions? We're going to start the participation part of this. We have a bunch of handouts, and one of the handouts, we want to put one set of questions on every table. Just very simple, sort of instigating some discussion is what these questions are going to do. And I'll read them out loud just so we could have a general understanding. Michael, give me one of them. So these are just a start, like an icebreaker kind of a thing. And your conversation could go wherever it goes. And we're going to be giving you the drawings as well. And we want you to write things down. We want you to jot down on the drawings what your thoughts are. And then we're going to all come together again to discuss it together. I ask that in each one of your tables, you ask one person to be your spokesperson, just to make sure that we grab the conversation. Somebody is responsible for grabbing the conversation and bringing it to the whole crowd, okay?
Did you say the timing on that?
Oh, this is going to be around 10 minutes, 12 minutes. So we're going to finish this up around 8 o'clock, a little after 8 o'clock. So you'll see that the first set is reflections on the existing public spaces, and the second set of questions is looking towards opportunities for the future. Okay, so the first question in the current form: does either park serve a function in your daily life? Do you use it for your weekly routines? Or does it play an occasional role for a festival, for just occasionally you visit? How do you use the public spaces? The last time you visited in particular? Did you go and sit in the sun? Did you bring your dog there? Now, how did you use the space? What do you enjoy when you visit? Do you notice anything particularly comfortable or uncomfortable about the experience? And what's your general perception of this space? What's your image when you think about the space? It's clean, it's dirty, it's attractive, it is memorable, it is ceremonial, right? It is maybe more of a negative thing, so you could decide what that might be. And then the opportunities for the future. What do you want to see there? What kind of events do you want to see there? What themes can we bring in? Interpretive things, history, values. We want to hear your ideas, basically, is what we're saying. And what's missing in your neighborhood? What do you need in a park? So this is just to get you started to think. And I'm going to shut up now. We're handing out all this stuff. And if you guys want to go to another table so you have like more of a conversation, you could. Okay. Sounds good. Bring out some of the ideas that you had at your table and give us a character of the discussion you were having. I don't know, Michael, can you take notes? Do you want to take notes on the pad? Okay, why don't you go ahead? You're not stopping. Okay, so are we wrapping up? We just don't want to stay here all night. We have 45 minutes to chat with you guys now. So let's start. Who wants to start? Okay, we got a starter here. Okay, speak to what you guys talked about, what you want to tell us. And Michael's going to write stuff down on the pad here.
Okay, I'm going to talk about what's up on the screen right now. Half of our table liked the design on the left, and the other half liked the design on the right. So I like the one on the right, and Mary liked the one on the left. But I like the reference that the design on the right is making to 19th century parks. More of a meandering thing, more of a natural setting. But I also like aspects of the one on the left with that kind of nature walk. So I'd like to see that incorporated into the design on the right. I like keeping that circular area, I mean, just for historical purposes, but it also acts as a focal point in the park. It's a place where you could have an acoustic musician playing and then people out in the grassy area watching him, or you can flip it around where you could have a much larger event in the grassy area and then people around the circle looking at it from that direction. So it presents more possibilities for sight lines. You could have a screen on either side, and it's like gives you a lot more possibilities to play with the space. I don't like having that right-of-way cut across. It's isolating that little island of greenery in the top right. It would be much, yes, much better if the easement could be moved over to the other side. I think that additional access location where that parking lot is, there's a big brick wall, on the right there, just below that park on the other side of the house. There's a big brick wall there. You could, put a movie screen there and then project there and have people sitting around there. So I think that this design on the right gives you a lot more options and more creativity. I do like the terraced area on the left, but if you have people sitting there, what are they looking at that wouldn't be on one side of that path or the other? That central path kind of bisects everything, and you pick a side, left side or right side. You can't have anything in the middle. So that's what I like about the right side. So I'm going to hand this over.
So I'm not going to comment on the details per se, but rather I think what's important to think about is, are they neighborhood parks or destination parks? So are we using them primarily for events and activities and trying to activate them, or are they parks for the casual meanderer? So I do think you need to think about the surrounding neighborhood and what the future development plans are that the city has. So right now, it is not a park you would drive to go sit in, because one, parking is awful. And if you're down in the downtown area anyway, what surrounds it isn't your natural retail places or food establishments. You have one or two. So it right now makes it more of a destination park where you're going there because things are happening. And I think thinking through what the future is of the park is important in settling on design elements, et cetera. And I would just say that whatever elements you use inside, you really have to think about mobility issues. Seniors, walkers, strollers, baby carriages, shopping carts, blah, blah, blah. It needs to be very easy to navigate.
Great, thanks. How about you guys? Who wants to take it?
I'm going to talk. So as far as what's up on the screen, Pugsley Park, I think that the three of us here unanimously agreed that we liked the example on the right. We like the flow of it, some things we talked about. It was mentioned that there had been a fountain there at one point in time. Perhaps bringing something like that back eventually. Also, some of us at the table had been to a meeting recently for Enlightened Peekskill, where they presented the finalists for the illuminated sculptures, and something that was brought up is perhaps bringing one of the final sculptures, one of the more monumental examples. I did just find them online, Rockstar and Great Rhombohedron, something like that. They're very striking, very appealing, and that could give people a reason to come up into the city and make Pugsley more of a destination, somewhere that people are really trying to go to. I think that overall we did like the example on the right. One thing from the left, though, that we agreed was nice was that upper quadrant that is owned by the government. We did like the incorporation of that and how the path sort of flows into that upper quadrant there. We weren't sure what was going on in the other example, how there's sort of a divide there, unclear what that was. But overall, we liked what's going on the right. And then for Monument Park, I think our tendencies were still more towards the flow, a little bit more reminiscent of Central Park. There was some issues. Yeah, maybe the other side. Yeah, so on the left, one big issue with the open space, even though it's a nice idea, is that what is across the street there is a beer distributor and a whole bunch of overflowing dumpsters, and also where they start all of the road tests. And so, yeah, they line up all the cars there. So even though it's a nice idea, more practically, I don't think there's anything really that appealing that opens up to. You know, Central Park on, or you know, the flow of the old park feel on the right is very nice. Personally, I do actually like how the example on the left gives you a nice straight shot view to the monument. I do think that opens it up nicely. Sort of reminded me of Washington, D.C., you know, looking from the Lincoln, yeah. So I did like that, but overall I still think the preference is for the flowing example. Some ideas there. Also, there was something that was brought up as funding, and if there is an issue with not having enough money, the idea of having people raise money through sale of bricks that you know, people put their names on. I know that's done at other parks. That was something that was brought up. Anything else?
Okay, thanks
good.
so much. And we'll have opportunities to add. And also, we're going to want to take whatever papers you want to hand in to us with jotted notes down. We're going to want to take those too, if we can.
I'll speak to Monument Park first, because that's really why the veterans that are in the room tonight are here. It's a Veterans Memorial Park, and I think that's the first thing everyone has to remember. I'm 90 years old, and I've been going there since they opened the park, really. I was 12 years old the first time I went there. And I go there every day. And I go there every day not to just dwell on those who are inscribed on the monuments, but also to see the condition of the park right now. And I can tell you right now, this is applicable to Monument Park and Pugsley Park. Unless you have a police presence there, I wouldn't leave a child there. I wouldn't leave anyone else there. It's horrible right now. And it's a bad situation. There's druggies, there's prostitutes, there's drunks, there's everything you could think of every day. The garbage is everywhere. The broken glass is everywhere. So if you're going to have Destination Park, and I think Pugsley Park could be a beautiful place, but I think it should be like Lonsbury's Park was. If you're going to have events in there, and if you're going to have it open to children and stuff in the daytime, there should be a police presence there, one cop there at least, all the time when it's open. Otherwise, we're going to have a catastrophe. Let's go back to Monument Park. Monument Park, what's crucial to us, the veterans, and to veterans from the other areas that come up here and utilize it and everything. We were planning on a Memorial Day parade again and things like that. This has to have a clear view from where we hold the ceremony, and I heard one of you were at the ceremony the other day, so you saw what it is. Now in the middle there where we have the people assemble, that's the one who's, on Memorial Day, it's the ones who were killed in actions, families and everything else. And on Veterans Day, it's all the relatives of all the veterans and everything. We have a history that's unparalleled, and if you come to the Memorial Day, you'll hear why Peekskill has been in the forefront for 100 years with every war, and I mean it. And I can point out to the people that have served and where, but we need a clear view, and what we need, and we've been begging for. First of all, when you're standing there, if you were there the other day, where they have the monument, the little monument, Civil War monument there, and you've got the monument for the World War I, and you've got trees alongside of it. Now you got some ugly bushes, and then you got 2 benches for the drunks. Those have to go out of there. The trees should go, The 2 benches should be moved somewhere else. But you got to have a clear view, because if you don't have a clear view, you can't see the color guards. So a lot of the color guards don't come anymore because you can't see them. You know, the Disabled America Vets color guards always came. The Knights of Columbus color guard came and everything. And then back there, they put what they call plants. I call them ugly weeds. And you can't put your color guards there. They have nowhere to stand. And then when you send the officials with the wreaths and you do the wreath ceremony and the taps, you can't see them because of these trees that they put in and the benches for the druggies. So to us, we want a clear view for veterans events. The rest of what they do, fine. I don't care what they do, and we don't care what they do. I think it could be a beautiful place. I think that you should have more seating, but way back, so that, and like one of the town officials said the other day, we ought to have some place to sit back here when we're all standing here for an hour. The ceremony lasts for an hour, you know. But the clear view, I've adopted, I always used to tell people my name is John H. Donahue, AKA Pete. Now it's AKA Clear View, because that's what we need, and that's what, you know, I got to tell you, if we don't have that, we're cheating every child and every youth that comes up, because they'll never know the history they should know everything about the Monument Park and everything. And that flagpole, that's a disgrace right now. They let the trees grow over the flag, you know, and again, they dump things there that, I mean, that area should be clear view, and it should be a new flagpole and a nicer looking flagpole, you know, not that thing that's been there. And that's where I come from. Now, as far as Pugsley Park, a lot of it's beautiful. There's a minister here tonight, and there's a high school principal that my brother worked with as the custodian before he died. Talking to him, I understand what some of the problems are, but he understands them better, so I'll wait until he talks about Pugsley Park. But Monument Park, I'm firm on that. And if we don't get the clear view, and if they destroy that, I'll have every veteran in this country here to protest it. Believe me.
I think we heard you loud and clear. I'm pretty sure there will be a clear view there, definitely.
I just got one comment. In both parks, I think you need a security advisor at every phase of your design process. Because today, particularly with Pugsley, I think you need camera systems so that you have full access and knowledge of what's going on there.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we're coming over to you guys. Who's going to talk?
Hi, thank you, everyone. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about Pugsley Park, and we were all in agreement that we really prefer the one with the curvy paths. We are also in favor of surfaces that will be able to absorb rainfall, not impermeable. And we like the idea of the art walk, but we were thinking it might be good if it was designed in a way that the art could change, so that people hear about a new exhibit and they go there. It would be fantastic to have one of those sculptures from the illumination thing. What else, gentlemen? We'd love it if there's something could be done with that piece of City of Peekskill property in the upper right, but I imagine that would be in the future, but that would be good. So even if you had the curvy things and your goal was to walk straight through, you still could do it. You get to cut through, and you get to, and the trees, the plantings, I'm sure will be a big part of your design, because you're landscape designers, right? Yeah. Anything else? No? Yeah, and
oh yeah, we thought the terrace idea on the Pugsley, yeah, we thought, you know, it's a nice concept, but in reality we don't think it would actually be used as amphitheater seating, and probably cost more to build and maintain. So we like kind of the meandering, gentle slope of the option on the right.
I wanted to ask, because we have spent quite a bit of time thinking about the large trees on each side of Monument Park. I don't know really what the condition is, but we know that having full visibility is very important. But we also like that strong line on each side, so we hope that those can be taken care of properly and remain. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we're back here. Who's taking the mic? Everybody's jumping for it.
So I think there's a lot we like about both options and appreciate the creativity in the designs. Maximizing seating opportunities seems to be important. Maximizing planning opportunities seems to be really important to increase the amount of greenery, especially in Pugsley. I think we were split between the two different options. I think they both have their own merits. I really like the organic flow of maybe the option B for Pugsley. It might make the park more usable, where right now we have one strong access and you're directly engaged with a few benches, but this might open up some more opportunity for regular use, whereas maybe Monument might be more appropriate for more formal design. I'd certainly defer to the veterans on how that park should be best utilized to properly celebrate and honor our history. It wasn't discussed much, but I do agree with security. I do agree that police presence would be welcomed to ensure that these parks are I think, a safe environment for people, residents, children to be. A play area was mentioned. I think that's very nice because I don't think anybody in these neighborhoods has the opportunity to have a play area within close walking distance for children. And perhaps in Pugsley, maybe it's the upper right corner, so it's sort of tucked off to the side. I think somebody in the group mentioned that there used to be a swing set or playground in that area, so it could be nice to maybe bring that back. Comment was made that if we were to divert from the current access in Pugsley, that we should consider trying to salvage the historic lighting and maybe repurpose that along the new paths, that has value. Movie theater screen is also welcome to see ways to engage the park and bring people in and activate the community and even have people come to visit Peekskill. The direction that the screen faces, while I understand that the terrace of the land works with that to allow people to view it a little bit better, it might also be interesting to consider it facing the opposite direction so that Main Street, which is very heavily trafficked, people see that activity as they drive by and it makes them, it intrigues them. They get interested, they try to find the movie schedule, and maybe they plan to come out for the next sighting. So I think that visibility of those activities happening in the park might be important as opposed to it turning its back on Main Street. And then an iconic focal point would be, I think, really welcomed, whether it's, if we're able to procure one of the illuminated sculptures could be really fantastic, or even the notion of restoring a fountain or another sculptural object that would be a focal point or destination for people to come to visit. Or both.
Yeah, I would, historically, the green space that you're talking about reclaiming in front of the house did have a swing set in it, so that could, you know, be a little offshoot. In terms of what the park is used at, there are a number of neighborhoods there. There are all the way from Constant coming down North James Street, Constant, Orchard, Cortland, Howard, and all of them have used that park back in, you know, back in my day. They used it not just to walk through, but also to sit in, and it had a beautiful fountain. So I would say that while we might have events there, it is in fact a neighborhood park and an urban neighborhood park. So I'd like to keep that in mind. In terms of Monument Park, I'm with John. I am a veteran, and I want it to stay as a Veterans Memorial. I really do like the fact that in the A, that there is a direct connection between the Civil War monument and the World War I, II, Korean, and Vietnam memorials. And I think that that's really important. In terms, you said you were there, I missed, in fact, this past ceremony. But are there walkways going down the sides of Monument Park? It's not just this center walkway?
Currently, there exists
Right, but it's on the outside.
It's on the outside.
Right, because it would be nice if we could have that sort of on the inside so that when we want to walk to the memorial, from the Civil War Memorial, you have one straight shot, but you also have a way to go around like this provides. You know, other than that, you know, a lot of lighting, benches. That's my neighborhood, so I don't, I think it's, you know, I don't have a problem.
Great, just a second.
I just wanted to say one more thing, is that we were in agreement with the design for Monument Park B, where it had a crosswalk going across Highland Avenue, because I think right now people just go any old way, and there's a lot of traffic in that area.
That was my only thing, is that if you could take this part off of B, if you could take the top part off of B where you're making your crosswalks come out and put it here, there's no reason why it couldn't be, and then you would get the benefit of the crosswalks and the walkability along with the straight through.
Got it. Okay. Second to last table, here we go.
I think I've been nominated. We talked a little bit at first, and this is something that the church is clearing up with, looking at our property line and stuff. It actually is a little farther. It goes, the fence for the parking lot jogs out at the end of the building, and we believe that our line goes from the jog and that fence, and then there are 2 lamp posts on the crosswalk that goes to the church door that we believe are sort of on our line, and then it goes straight all the way up to the sidewalk. So it's a little further. The property that's actually is part of the park but belongs to the New York Diocese is a little further, cuts in a little further. So that like jog of sidewalk up there at the top probably isn't going to work. But so the 2 things where we talked about the designs, we generally favored Plan B for Monument Park. I like the fact that there's lawn in the middle. We do, however, totally appreciate the need for the view straight through from one end to the other. I've been to many Memorial Day and Veterans Day services there, and it's really important. On the other hand, fitting in more places for people to sit would be great, because those services are attended in large part by a lot of elderly folks who, you know, come dragging their folding chairs and whatever, because there's not really any accommodations. Having it be shady is wonderful, as long as it doesn't interrupt the view up the center. And we also talked about Highland Avenue, you were part of that discussion, and how dangerous the traffic situation is at the bottom of Monument Park, where you come off Highland and you have to basically hang out your car window to look up North Division to make sure that nothing's coming before you leave. And I know it's not part of the park planner's job, but we would want to recommend to the city that some consideration be given to changing traffic patterns in that area, so that Highland might be a one-way street in that block. Yeah, north. One-way north. So yes, it was pointed out that there was an accident there there were 2 accidents only just the last couple of days at that park. In terms of Pugsley Park, we favored the winding path, because, you know, it can still be used if people park on Howard and want to walk through it. As was pointed out, it will take them, you know, an additional 30 seconds to make it from one end to the other, and it will be a much prettier trip. We think that the circle in this is definitely, you know, a positive feature, but it definitely needs a centerpiece, and some, you know, a monumental sculpture or something, you know, big enough to make sense there, but if it's changeable, that might, as Mary suggested, that might not be a bad thing. And we talked about the amphitheater aspect of the other plan. we realized that, you know, when we did Peekskill Landing, we put one down there and it's never used. The little sculpture family sits there and people go and visit them and dress them up in hats and scarves and seasonal clothing, but it's never been used for programming, and so whether this really would only become a lawn mowing issue or would be really used is questionable. On the other hand, you know, having some kind of setup where you could do, you know, move in a movie screen setup for people to actually bring their lawn chairs. I mean, that has worked at the riverfront, where we do movies down there, and families just come like they would for a concert and bring their seating. So my experience of the park is long and frequent, because I ran the pantry at St. Peter's for 10 years. And so I was basically in that park every day. As long as the pantry is in the church, we do use that side door of the church through the park to bring small deliveries, not trucks, but, you know, pallet jacks full of stuff down from the street. But otherwise, you know, it's just a pleasant thing to have outside the windows. I do think that a playground would be great. I also think, and this is an issue that, you know, I have with a lot of small cities, I suppose probably only if this piece the upper corner gets developed. Peekskill needs in this park somewhere in the downtown public restroom. I know the city would have to maintain it, but I will say that this park is used as a urinal. And if there were a proper building that you could go into to pee, you probably wouldn't pee on the side of the church. So, you know, that's my 2 cents. But I think it's a feature that really needs to be incorporated. I mean, obviously you're not going to put one in Monument Park. You really need to put one in this park right in the middle of the downtown, because there's no place to go except the library. One little bathroom in the library. It's the only public bathroom in the downtown. Or it isn't even in the downtown.
So I'm going to put in the plug for the art. Okay. Basically, we have this park in Pugsley facing a parking lot, which is not a beautiful thing, no matter what you do. So my idea is to bring a screen of banners along that side of the park so that we can actually have some art to look at and screen our way away from that parking lot. I think that the B plan is much more natural, and I think that the idea of doing the planting on maybe on the right-hand side, that is the pollinators and all of that, I think that would be wonderful. So the other thing about Monument Park is trimming those trees so that you can see through and see into the park would be really beneficial. Lighting, absolutely.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, and the final table.
Okay, we'll start with Monument Park. There was a sort of division here. Some actually love the idea of the traditional Monument Park part, you know, this straight line. Others of us thought that bisected any additional area. But then the other half liked we preferred the sort of meandering aspect, but also the fact that there was a gathering space for the memorial services that happen. We like the fact that there's some openness, expanding the area around the Civil War monument. We also thought, though, that whichever way it ends up, but even with the meandering path, we want a very clear, direct at least a sight line between the monument areas, which, of course, cutting those trees and lifting the canopy would greatly help. We also discussed how dangerous that corner is. And we also agree with the idea of making Highland Avenue a one-way street going north. Anybody coming south can just go onto Orchard and down onto, it's an extra block out of the way. But one of the things what we did like about the option B, the meandering one, was that you did end up with two gathering spaces, the one around the monuments, but then also the lawn, which could be another type of a gathering space. And one of the things that we also were talking about was that it talks about the least we forget is sort of the purpose of that park, and to make sure we keep that. Did you want to say something about
all that? They take the driving test, right at the end of here. So, preferable that some kind of bench is there. That's all I just wanted to add there.
And then whatever proposal for whatever park, I think we have to look at what's the impact to our DPW. How are they going to maintain the grass, the shrubs? How are they going to empty the trash? How are they going to snow plow? So I think that has to be an aspect, and along with the public safety, with the cameras, that these parks are being used. We all know what's there. We want to get more people in there, and that will help change the environment. But okay, thank you.
And I think we need to be mindful when we're making these benches to make them seating friendly. All those benches are so high your feet can't touch the ground, and the concrete in front of the benches is protruding under the seat. There's nowhere for you to rest your feet. All those benches, all of them is the same way. So we gotta be mindful when you're making all of this stuff be friendly for people who are short. I'm a shorty, so I want to make sure when I come, and if I want to have drumming out there, you can't sit in those benches. Because I was considering to have my classes out there, but I couldn't do it because the benches was not friendly. We must really think about some stuff to do for our young people. They have to have somewhere to go and do things to develop their characters. But we really have to be mindful of our young people, not just for our own personal comforts that we like to have a beautiful environment for us to see and invite other people from other communities to come to. Our young people is more important than we are. We have to really consider them. I am going to be off topic, but it's really striking a nerve. Thank you.
Wonderful. You had something else? Okay.
No, that middle part where they're going to put the little thingy where the circle is, we should have that like a reciprocating pedestal for artists to display their sculptures. Other artists in the community and outside the community to display their coastal sculptures. Thank you again. I love you all.
Okay, just a very last bit. On Pugsley Park, we preferred the meandering park. We did like the fact that different gathering spaces, the fact that there could be a focal point. We like the idea of the permeable, having permeable surfaces. That it is, and I think both of them end up being neighborhood parks because of the surrounding areas, and those are the only parks in those areas. But one of the things, as Tim was mentioning, also we need visual connections because of safety, and because of the current use of the park has been, as everybody said, has not been so great. I think that's it for the moment.
Wonderful, and I see that we have a couple more comments, so.
We only talked about Pugsley Park. When we started, we didn't talk about Monument Park, didn't realize that. But quickly, in terms of visioning the park, it is Monument Park for a reason, and so I think balancing its historic nature with a neighborhood park takes a delicate balance, where Pugsley Park is much more open to more activated neighborhood type of activity. We like the fact that you expanded the island around the Civil War Memorial so people could actually visit it and see it. But in addition to uplighting or lighting that, I don't think we should forget about our other monuments at the other end of the park and lighting those as well. Beyond that, I mean, there's combinations of both of them. Sightlines, as you've heard, is important, but the connecting the entrance to the park to crosswalks like you have in B is really terrific. However, for this park not to be diminished in its value, needs some work beyond your scope by the city. If there's any way to move DMV off the corner, it would be helpful because it makes that park feel inaccessible with the cars lined up there, et cetera. I heard someone say that that block of Highland may be made a one-way, which would be nice, but garbage control is really important because this block is not in the bid district. So the tenants above the retail spaces on the second and third floor, they don't have daily garbage pickup like the downtown tenants have, where they could put their garbage out on the curb and it's picked up. So trash receptacles get filled with household garbage because there is no other place to put it, and our typical solution to overflowing trash cans is to remove them entirely. So there needs to be a better strategy. If we're going to keep the park clean, keep the neighborhood clean, there needs to be a strategy and work with the city on that. And if there's any way to have DMV pick a better corner, they should go do it. And we were sort of kind of conflicted on the bump outs. It's nice. I think it's nicer than just all the pavement as an entrance, making it feel reflective, but with DMV there, that might be counterproductive.
I just want to point out one thing. I don't think the placement of that second monument is correct. These two monuments are directly across from one another. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to have a straight shot, you're going to be looking at,
relocate that monument.
You're going to have to move that monument.
Yeah, so those are things that we have to think about. Does anybody else have anything that came up during this conversation that you want to express? Okay. Yeah, that's the one thing. We didn't bring food. I'm sorry. Next time we'll bring food, I promise. Yes.
I love flowers, and I know that planting annuals is expensive. But if we can get the flower beds that we supposedly have now with flowers, would be great. But perennials would be helpful, and perennials that don't require a lot of pruning as our landscape, you know, to make it interesting and pretty. And like, again, pollinators and native plants, a lot of that around besides the trees that I think we need for oxygen and shade and coolness. But, and my personal thing is Pugsley, when it was first built, that centerpiece had a fountain. I don't know whatever happened to the fountain itself. A lamppost is there now. It would be nice if that focal point, if we stay with that, would somehow have another fountain. And if we got to do a fundraiser, and I'm there, you know, we got to do a GoFundMe, or have all these festivals have a surcharge that goes to the fountain fund, you know, to put a fountain back in Pugsley the way it was. That would be the focal point for that beautiful rendition of B. And the lighting is important, but anyway, the plants, more perennial plants.
Yep, most definitely. Come on right over to you.
I'll be brief. Just one thing I want to share with you, which is the feeling of so many families that I deal with and veterans and those who have lost others. Monument Park, where you have the names on the monuments, many of those who were killed in action never came back here and got buried. This is the only site where they're honored. It's like the cemetery to me. It's that sacred. And that's why I feel that Monument Park should not even be considered for a playground for anybody. It should be Monument Park. It's dedicated to all those people that died so we can live free. And that's the same as going out to the cemetery. We go out there, and for the killed in actions that did come back, we put wreaths on the grave of all the veterans we can. We put 3,600 flags out there at the cemeteries. But Monument Park, a lot of those people have never, ever come back here. And their families and everything, believe it or not, you go up there and you'll meet their family members visiting the park quite often. It's not the same as a neighborhood park. It's really not. And I don't know how to get it across any more than that. But I mean, the reason I go there, I pray for the ones that didn't come back, especially the ones I knew. And I knew lots of them, and so did a lot of other people. And Monument Park is a sacred park as far as it's not a neighborhood playground. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's a great note to end it on, unless there's anything else. Thank you guys, thank you everybody for coming out, and we will take all the notes and bring this. Wait 1 second, Peter just wants to say something.
Just to encourage everyone to please continue to check the city's website about the DRI initiative. Like I said, you can go there, cityofpeekskill.com, and one of the news items is the DRI initiative. So I'm going to go to that site first thing tomorrow morning and make sure that materials are available there for anyone who needs them, and you'll have the ability to leave comments for staff through that website. And beyond this project, please continue to check the site for our other DRI initiative projects. And so thanks again to Susan and her team.